on this topic, much deeper on this topic in the future. Initial questions on that?
So we would continue to operate under the current agreement, which is now 3 years old.
Yes, or approaching 3 years, yeah. And we have implemented most of the steps of the new agreement that was approved by the arbitrator. And obviously, the union has not liked some of those steps and is appealing some of the issues to the Employee Relations Board. And we can brief you at another time on the status of those. No hearings or issues becoming ripe in the next month. Number 10 on the list was additional revenue generating ideas, and this is one of the tasks that I think will be that the General Manager Budget Task Force can be assigned to really look at in a very much more detailed way, and hopefully that review and report can provide fuel and information for your consideration as we move forward again. And I think my sense is this is very much a long-term strategy. This isn't something that we're thinking about implementing any time in this fiscal year for sure. And Portland Streetcar, again, we did complete the master agreement related and the operating agreements related to the Portland Streetcar. So that is a complete task. So while there's a lot of continuing work under that agreement that we are engaged with the city on. Regarding Lyft, one of the issues you had raised in the budget resolution was the study that we had done related to the internal, turning Lyft into an internal transit operation versus a contracted operation. We documented that was at great additional cost and long-term instability, perhaps, to the funding of the program. So that study was completed, and I'm not sure what additional steps we should be taking on that right now. I think my sense is that that was a pretty definitive study and that we're at that point, but if there are other steps the board would like us to take on that, I'd be happy to take that direction.
Do you think any additional work needs to be done on this one? No, I think we've explored this quite well, so I think complete.
We'll mark it
complete is right. Yeah.
And then the financial strategic plan, and again, this is underway, and both Board Member Prosser and Schweitzer have been meeting on this, and we have been, the key underpinnings of that will be the financial forecasts that we do on an annual basis, and we are working on those, and we'll be sharing those here shortly with Board Member Prosser and Schweitzer. And then I think that will allow the basis for the strategic financial plan to be put together. And will be integrated, of course, into that some of the issues of the labor contract and other cost structure issues that we face as we move ahead. I don't know, Craig, if you wanted to add anything.
Well, I think you pretty well covered it. And just for the board's information, kind of start mulling it over. What we should be seeing kind of as a first step, from the forecast is also looking at some alternate futures. If we continue on the course we're on, if we want to try to address the issue solely on the revenue side, or if we want to address it solely on the cost side. And what will be up to the board at that point then is to have the discussion about what is the course that we should chart between the alternatives so that we get to the future that we want to arrive at. So it's both identify that desired future and then kind of the key points that we're going to follow to get there.
Thank you. Related to capital projects, we are currently engaged in studies with Metro on the Southwest Corridor, and I think what we've been able to do is bring a sense of both our constraints related to capital and operating funding to that table, and hopefully allow that early consideration of what is really early work in developing a project to have a wider array of alternatives, including new bus alternatives that perhaps have not been applied in the past. So we're working with all the stakeholders on that. That will be a long-term process, but that is underway, and I think we've been successful in communicating the challenges we face, but also looking at the reality of funding for some of these corridors moving forward, and whether or not that means that we need to begin to think about We also have bus rapid transit efforts underway, just beginning on the Powell Division Corridor, which is another corridor that Metro has identified. And recall that the beginning of these projects always start with Metro in the lead, and we generally then, once we begin the implementation phases, that's when TriMet becomes the lead agency. So we're working very closely with the government partners on that. If there's any other questions. I would also just note that the other major project that we're working and continue strongly is C. Again, we have staff embedded in the project up there related to the light rail investments, and continue to work closely with our partners at ODOT and WDOT in advancing that project. Last item is partnerships, and this is a broad one, and a lot is underway within the agency on this front. One of our key initiatives is the West Side Service Enhancement Plan, which is generally the sector of the district that is west of Beaverton and includes the Sunset Corridor at Hillsborough. And it has been, I think, the first comprehensive look at service in that area since really probably mid-90s when we did the service planning for the West Side Light Rail Line. And obviously, employment and population have changed dramatically in that corridor. And we're continuing to work with all the employers, many of the employers, and cities and jurisdictions in that area. And it has embellished a couple of actual near-term proposals that we're working on that are key partnerships. One is that as part of your service plan, we created a line 48 that runs from Hillsborough Transit Center to the Sunset Transit Center all along Cornell, which is a major employment and service corridor. We have high expectations, frankly, for that corridor because of the complementary mix of uses that we think will work well for and become a very successful bus line in the future. Right now, that service runs at about half-hour frequency. We'd love to see that frequency increase over time. One of the opportunities that Washington County has created is something they call an opportunity fund with their MSTIP funds, where actually a portion of the general fund that is dedicated to transportation. And they've opened this up to non-roadway uses. And so we put together an application for those funds that includes some match from TriMet, some match from the county's MSTIP, and then also a larger chunk from ODOT's enhancement funds that are also up for allocation in the next few months. And the goal is to create some bus stop pads and improvements all around, if you will, Cornell, Evergreen, and that sort of northwest part of Hillsborough, where part of our district, to actually improve and support the improving bus service that we have in that corridor. So that's a near-term project that sort of has an early finding, if you will, of the West Side Service Enhancement Plan. And we're hoping to expand those kinds of partnerships in a number of other areas as we move on ahead. As I think I've mentioned to you that we intend to rotate around the region and do actually East Side Service Enhancement Plan, again looking at the service in East Portland and East Multnomah County in particular, and then back to the Southwest Corridor as well, and that will be aligned with the work that Metro is doing on the Southwest Corridor. And our goal, as we now also begin to look at another allocation of MTIP funds, is to see what other kinds of partnerships we can put together related to transit enhancement, safety on particularly regional corridors, and things like safe crossings and intersections, as well as sidewalks, which is, I think, some of the basic infrastructure that we continue to emphasize to all of our regional partners. So those are some of the key things. And one of the other areas where we're going to begin some additional partnership work is where we've had some success in the past is our Renew the Blue effort, which is looking at the blue line stations and safe crossings on that first light rail line. And so that's another emphasis of our partnership work, and that would be with the City of Portland and City of Gresham in particular, but also Multnomah County. So that's a quick review of the partnerships. Obviously, a lot underway in the agency, and there are many people here to collaborate on those or others. If you have questions or thoughts.
Questions, thoughts?
No, I just, excuse me, just the overall, I just want to say this is so helpful. in terms of providing a snapshot of where we're at, so thank you.
Thank you.
So, it is very helpful, and a lot is been completed, a lot has been completed, and a lot is underway. Either in our retreat or when we were adopting the budget with very significant changes, I recall that we set a goal, or discussed a goal of attempting to grow and sustain transit services. And within that, we could describe that goal to not only grow and sustain, but to improve the delivery and the quality and the effectiveness. And really, as we talked today about the mitigation program for low-income residents, the expansiveness of our service to folks in need. And I would say I would include employers within that. And so much has been talked about that goes through that kind of a filter. And I wonder if there's a way to nominally, in a very crisp sentence, capture that, so that when we know we're thinking about those things, when we're talking about fare policy, or when we're talking about why do we do ridership data, just not to have data, but to grow and sustain our public transit services for these core reasons. And it isn't just messaging, it's that basis upon which we make decisions. And I know that you folks live with us every day. I mean, this is your life. And the staff, and we salute that. To the extent that we can always have that in front of us and the public can see that, they'll know, or they'll have a greater sense of confidence that, well, I see they're trying to grow and sustain. And that's one of the filters when the Budget Advisory Committee reconvenes. They'll say, okay, does that make any sense? It's that umbrella.
Yeah, I think I'm excited. First off, this is a good piece of work. I want to second this update. I think I'm excited because I think when we passed this resolution, we were looking at the future and looking at what things can help us get better informed for the next budget year and beyond, right? And so I think you're right that this is not only a snapshot about where we are now, but it's really informing us about where we want to be, which is, again, I think improving service quality and sustainability of the service in the future. So I'm really excited about a number of things coming back. Maybe our retreat, again, is what date?
27th.
November 22nd. Second?
27th.
27th. So this is our Thanksgiving retreat. Right? But I think maybe we might have an update on where we are in some of these things, but I think this would be an ideal time to kind of talk about this in relation to where we want the agency to be. I also think between now and then we'll probably get an opportunity to talk in the executive session more about the contract and some of the financial information that's being developed by Craig's group and the staff here. So I think all of this is being put together to really help us be a whole lot more crisp and a whole lot more prepared and frankly a whole lot more strategic in the way we move forward in our decisions in the budget next year. So I'm with you entirely. But so keep pushing on us. Okay. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item, then, computer-aided dispatch. Automatic vehicle location system update.
We're bringing our experts up. AJ O'Connor is here, and Patrick Newman from Innet, who's the primary contractor on this. Recall, this is a really major effort, which is really touching everybody in the agency one way or another. Replacing all the radios, we're improving and putting in place a whole new bus dispatch system, as well as putting in all new terminals on every bus that communicates with all of these devices. And so it's been a very major effort. We are in the steps of implementation of this overall, and I wanted AJ to give you a little window into this together with Patrick.
Thank you for the opportunity to update you. The project team is very excited at this point. And since you're an all-new board, I think since the contract was approved within it, I thought a brief explanation of what CAD-AVL is would be a good place to start. It's really a combination of a radio system, equipment, a PC, if you will, on the bus, and software for the dispatchers, all working together to provide real-time tracking of the vehicles, system performance measurement in real time, and the collection of lots of data for Steve Callis afterwards for operational analysis. Why we're doing this, there's two primary reasons. The Federal Communications Commission has mandated for efficiency sakes across the country that the 450 band be narrowed, and our radios currently on the buses are on that frequency, so we have to retire our current radio system. The current CAD-AVL system is first generation. First generation systems do the AVL part, the automatic vehicle location, very well, but they were very rudimentary in their dispatch functions. Showed the vehicle on the map, showed where it was in relation to schedule, but really did not advance the ability to proactively manage the system. It was more of a, here's where things are and let's react. So that combined with the fact that the FCC mandated we get off the radio system and our first generation system was essentially dying, we were literally getting parts off eBay to keep it running. So those two things combined together caused this project to move forward. As Neil said, we're in the very first week of full fleet installation. We're ramping up to 20 vehicles a week. We're at 1 vehicle a day right now. We had about 30 vehicles in a pilot fleet that are out there right now, and we've added a few in the last couple days. We're close to 40 now. So what I was talking about with the second generation is this system is really going to provide a lot of benefit to what Mr. Clark was talking about in terms of the efficiency and effectiveness of our system. And Patrick has pulled up the system behind Neil. This is live. This is tracking the 40 buses that are out there now. Our dispatchers will have multiple screens up, so they'll be able to display several things at once. The limitation here is we're going to have to show you one screen at a time. But the major difference is between the current system and the new system, and the benefit is the dispatcher will be able to see with one glance how the entire system is performing, which Patrick just pulled up. You can see that it's color-coded, so they can quickly see if there's an issue. As you can imagine, when we have all 650 vehicles installed, this tool becomes more powerful. If they saw a red bar, that means that there's trouble in that route. And trouble means the buses are bunching close together or they're too far apart. And the dispatcher then can quickly drill down into that by just clicking. Then this pulls up a specific route, and it's called a route ladder. The rectangular box you see is where the vehicle is actually located right now. The arrow is where he should be, and all those ticks across are the actual bus stops. And from there, if they want to go into further detail, they can show the vehicle on the map, they can call the vehicle, and as you can see, that shows where the vehicle is. And the dispatcher would have all these screens up simultaneously, so they wouldn't have to go through each one. So that's a huge advancement in terms of just quickly seeing where the problem is. The way it works now is they have a map that's similar to this up, and they're visually looking at it, and the operator essentially calls in when there's an issue, and it's first come, first served. So really the power in the dispatch system is going to be greatly improved. Additionally, all the radios that are going into all the non-revenue vehicles, the maintenance vehicles, are GPS enabled, and so for the first time in TriMet's history, a dispatcher will be able to see where all the resources are in the field at one time. Currently, the district is divided into regions according to road supervisor, and the dispatcher, to figure out who's closest to an accident or an incident, he calls the road supervisor that's in that district to see if he's close. Now, there might be a guy in the next district over who's 5 minutes away, because these districts are rather large. So they'd have to make a couple phone calls to see where that vehicle is. Now, they can just look at the map and they can instantly see who's closest and dispatch that vehicle or any kind of resource, maintenance vehicle or road supervisor to a bus in trouble. In addition to those features, we have passenger counters that are going on as part of this project on all the buses, and we'll be able to know real time what the passenger load is of that vehicle, either by demand or by parameter. So Patrick's pulling up, this is a real status screen of a vehicle that got a warning. Occupancy 0 level means that that's up to 75% full. Occupancy 1 is between 75% and 90%. Occupancy level 2 is 90% above. So we really had to call the operator to see what their load was. Additionally, chaining of vehicles during snow and ice issues. The operator is going to be able to have a button on their interface to the system and say, yes, I'm chained, and the dispatcher will know immediately what vehicles are chained, what aren't, and where they can go, so that should improve some of our snow and ice operations. The biggest impact on this system is, it's another acronym, it's CASR, or called CASR. It stands for Computer Aided Service Restoration. And this really is where we see the impacts with customer service. So right now, when a detour happens and say several stops are closed, the text message is sent to the operator in the current system, so the operator knows these stops are closed. That information getting out to the customer, they have to call a road supervisor, they have to go out and put signs to stop is closed. Transit Tracker is unlikely to find out about it in the current setting. Now, with these CASR informations, Patrick's going to demonstrate, say we had a detour, we needed to close all those stops that he just highlighted. The dispatcher would do exactly like he did, highlight it, check it, and then the computer's going to check, see if there's any connections affected, and then in red it's going to show, or below it's going to show where and what stops service is being canceled to. Now, we won't execute this because we would actually send messages to any bus that goes through there, but if the dispatcher were to execute this, every bus that's going to go to that stop will get that message, and instantly the information would go to our enterprise database systems and say these stops are canceled, where Transit Tracker would then pick it up and then immediately pass that on. So if you were walking up to a stop and you went to check it, you would get the notification. We're phasing this project in. The CASRs, or the service restoration measures, can't really be implemented until we have all 650 vehicles in place. So we have sort of two-phase training for the dispatchers. They've been trained in the basic operation of the system, and the advanced features will come later in January when we're much closer to being fully installed on all buses. Other things of note in terms of customers, currently the current CAD-EVL system and automatic stop announcement system does not work in the Urban Canyon downtown. So currently our operators, when they enter a certain area within downtown, have to rely on the mic to call out stops. This system is more advanced than that one, and it's working flawlessly in downtown. So the operator no longer has to use the phone mic to announce stops. And then the third big advance, we really can't show you on the screen here, but is the amount of data that we're going to collect from this system. There's a black box that is part of, essentially a black box that's part of the PC that's on this system that's similar to what airlines have, or if you have a modern car. It collects all kinds of information about how the vehicle is performing sudden stop or sudden acceleration or sudden turn, any kind of incident like that is going to capture all that data for later analysis. Likewise, as we've started to renew our fleet, the modern engines and transmissions come with a lot of data on how they're performing, and this system will be integrated into that and capture all that engine and transmission data, and we'll be able to take that, maintenance will be able to use that and hopefully predict where things are going to fail before they fail. The challenges that we are going to encounter is that this is a huge paradigm shift at the dispatch end. It's really a different way to do business for them. And so, as you know, with change, few people embrace it, most people resist it, so we're going to have to work through that. The other is the amount of data we're going to collect is going to be double or triple what we're collecting now. It's going to take a little while to figure out exactly what matters and what doesn't, what data to throw away, and we'll be relying on people like Steve Callis to go through that. And then lastly, the radio system. The current radio system is over 30 years old, and if you talk to a radio expert, it's about as simple as they get in terms of managing the system, and we're moving to about as modern as you can get in a radio system. It's digital, it's P25, which is a standard that arose out of 9/11 and the issues that they had with connecting radios. And it's very complex, so we're going to have a steep learning curve on managing that radio system. And I should mention, we're currently on 2 different radio systems. The buses is on a TriMet-owned 450 system. Light rail vehicles, non-revenue vehicles, and portables are on the City of Portland system. So when we're complete with this project, we'll be on one TriMet radio system.
One question. Since we're fitting up the buses, as the new fleet is arriving, are they being fitted before they get on the road, or
Yes.
that's going to be up to, okay?
No, they're being installed with this new equipment. And I should have mentioned also the transfer printer and ticket printer that Neil had mentioned before is added to this contract, and it is the supplier of that ticket printer, and it will be integrated into this system.
So, like when you were going to do a route cancel on that, which you didn't, how's the driver, the operator get that notice?
It'll appear on his on the screen that you see
Okay,
in the
so
corner.
there's a screen that you'll have.
Yes. It'll pop up and say, these routes canceled and please reroute.
And the screen, by the way, is very fast. It's just from the lay perspective, it looks like a little iPad. So it's a very flexible, very useful, I think, communication device. So it's not, little boxes to push. It actually is a very flexible screen. So it also will allow us to begin to think about how other ways to communicate with the workforce. You can think of safety message of the day or customer service message of the day as they log onto the system. And so we have some of those capabilities to begin to extract and draw into this as well. So,
I was actually worried about distracted driving, is what I was.
we're going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Standard operating procedures that they're not to interact with it while they're driving.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
good. Yeah, they have to decide.
No.
So we're very excited about this, but I think as AJ noted, this is also coming with a bit of a cultural change within the dispatch system. So that's Shelley and her team and I will be paying a great deal of attention to training and bringing people along as we do this. It is a big change. But it has great benefits, I think, for our customers. Occasionally, I want you to see what you pay for a little bit per budget.
This will be out at Rockwood and on the buses.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, I think it's great. Just a couple things, when we were talking about the demographics in terms of aging. Sometimes there's, the new media stuff, not everybody's up and ready to do that, so I imagine there may be some challenges with that. And then also just in light of the unfortunate stabbing that happened, so will this system, obviously, can they push a button and say, whatever, distress signal, what have you, immediately, to have that more immediate response?
Okay. And something like that will rise to the top immediately through the whole system, and they'll get immediate response.
That's right. And are you going to demonstrate or? Okay. So if there was an emergency, it would pop up right here, and there's a sound that would go in dispatch that would grab your attention. It sounds like doom. Boom, boom. I mean, you can't miss it. And a flash. So it's obvious. And the vehicle, in that case, the operator has a button they can push under their seat, and it would increase the reporting of that vehicle location from every 30 seconds to every 5 seconds. And a covert mic would initiate and record it, and the dispatcher would be able to hear what's going on.
Excellent. Great. All right. Do we have to have this next briefing?
I know it's supposed to be 17 degrees today, but I don't, we'll film it. We decided, I saw Craig put on his coat, so maybe it was a sign.
Air
that-
conditioning.
But I did want Shelley just to give you a very quick update on what is really always a major effort.
I'm not really feeling the love. So if you haven't lived through a winter with TriMet, well, you've lived through it, you just haven't lived in the seats that you're in now. So I just wanted to stop by and let you know that there's a lot of activities that happen. Really, we start in the summer as we build up toward the big, what we hope, non-events that face us for the winter. Annually, we update our winter operations plan using a lot of the lessons learned from the storms before. And we're in the process of doing that now. We've done our first draft. We had a drill in September. We did a hot wash on that drill, which is immediately after we see what we've learned from that. And then we revised the plan again to make sure that we've taken care of what we learned during our drill. Our next drill is in October, and that will be sort of the next level up of crisis. And staff's always happy to participate because you can make mistakes, and that's the place you learn. And we try to bring staff in that maybe isn't as experienced in dealing with some of the winter and emergency management, so that when the real thing hits, it's not quite as overwhelming. We also spend a lot of time making sure our facilities have all the supplies that they need. It's sort of things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. Things like, do we have enough ice cleats for our shoes for our employees? Do we have chili and stew and food supplies that are laid in? Do we have cots and blankets and air mattresses? Because when it hits, in particular in operations, we're very dedicated. And when I say we, I mean everybody right down to the brand newest operator knows that we have a mission, and that mission is to move a region. And you'd be surprised to know that attendance is actually very high on snow and ice days, because you don't want to be that person who comes to work the next day and get razzed by your peers because you were the professional who couldn't make it to work. So people really do pull together, and we're in the process of laying in those supplies. We've begun having joint meetings with our jurisdictional partners. We spend a lot of time talking, in particular with PBOT and ODOT, about how things went the year before, how we could partner on things like priority sanding, so that we're not doing dual duty, and also so that they understand where we need them to sand first for our mainline routes. When there's an emergency event, we have a liaison that goes and embeds with them in their operations center, so that they are very connected to us, and we are very connected to them. We've also been reviewing all of our snow and ice contracts. We have contracts with different vendors to help us with snow and ice removal equipment if we need it. People who we can ask to come out and help us to do some of that removal, or that we can get equipment from, and we've gone through all those contracts to make sure they're in place and good to go. I think the media has made you well aware about the buses we have, with the 65 buses with the drop chains. And I'm so happy that the new 55 buses all have that same capability. And why that's really important is we have to make the chaining decisions so far in advance that it really is a roll of the dice to get it right. And oftentimes it means we send buses out on chains, and that's really hard on our equipment, it's hard on our operators, and it's not a very good ride for our customers. So the drop chains in particular have just been a lifesaver, because we can send them out and deploy them into areas where it's a little hilly in different areas, and it's just better for everyone. And I dream of the day when the entire fleet is chaining that way. We also have ordered in plenty of chains because in the event we have a deep snow event, the drop chains aren't going to do the trick for us. We're going to still have to do the heavy chaining. And we make sure we have at least enough chains to chain the fleet 3 times and that we're able to repair the chains at least twice. So you can come down and see racks and racks and racks of chain. When it comes to our light rail system, we have switch heaters and what we call our critical chain, or critical switches. Our switches are divided into sort of 3 categories. One that is the mission critical, and those are switches that without them, if those switches freeze, which is really, especially East County, really prone to that. If those switches freeze, there is no way to get a train through. We're stopped. So those are critical. Then we have things that are not as critical. They're sort of the semi-critical. And those are the switches that we can work around them if we have to. There's ways we can get around, but it's really inconvenient and slows us up. And then we have other that are not as critical. They're like for special events tracks. We can definitely get around those. The really important news that I have is that in FY11, using stimulus funds, we were able to complete all of what we call the mission critical switches. We were able to get switch heaters in all of those. And that'll make a huge difference in our performance. And we're still looking forward to the day when the semi-critical get finished up. But I guess what I really want to tell you is we're gearing up, we're ready, we got switch heaters, we've got drop chains, and now we hope we don't need them. My thing is always have a good plan, you'll never need it, have no plan, and you'll get killed. So, any questions? Are you dying about winter operations?
So what's the extended outlook saying about winter?
Well, the woolly caterpillar. You know, every year about this time, someone drags out, you know, the Farmer's Almanac, or their grandma always said if the clovers don't have 4 leaves. Or my outlook is always, I'll watch the weather and I'll roll the dice. Just be ready. Okay, I hope I don't have to report back to you on how we did during the winter storm. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions, comments there?
So how are you going to replace Sam Adams?
We will have a good MC.
I just don't know how to respond to that. I'm sorry that's not in my notes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's all we have on our briefing agenda. Is there anything else for us today?
So questions? No, always available for that.
Any other items from the board? Okay, thank you. Briefing is over.
Pretty much on time.
Yes.